Chinelo came home early and discovered her twin children naked in bed. But the horrifying truth behind the scenes is what left everyone screaming in terror. Chinelo had always carried the weight of her responsibilities as a mother, wife, and businesswoman in Lagos. Her days at the market were long and tiring, never giving her any rest between managing her fabric shop and taking care of customers. But tonight, something felt different. Something unsettling hung in the humid Lagos air, so she decided to go home earlier than normal. The tiredness of dealing with customers and the traffic of Lagos already pulling at her weary legs. As she pushed open the metal gate, the compound greeted her with an unusual silence, very different from the normal chaos of generators humming and her children playing outside while waiting for her. Everywhere was silent. As she opened the door of her house, her sister Eberi, the ever-reliable help who had moved from the village to live with her and the children, stood waiting by the stairs, her face pale and her hands shaking nervously. "Sister Chinelo, there's something you need to know," Eberi began, her voice low and trembling. Chinelo dropped her bag by the stairs, a frown creasing her brow as she took her shoes off to free her feet from the stress of her high heels. "What is it? What happened?" she asked, though deep down she feared the answer. Eberi hesitated, looking over her shoulder to make sure no one else was around. Her whisper was barely audible. "I was downstairs preparing lunch. I heard noises from Chinonso's room. I went upstairs, and when I opened the door, Chinonso wasn't wearing any clothes. She was naked, and Chijioke was there. Chijioke got up from the bed and ran out as soon as I opened the door." Chinelo stared at her sister, her mind trying to process what she had just heard. It felt as though the floor beneath her had shifted and she was about to fall through it. "Are you sure, Eberi? Are you really sure of what you are saying?" she asked, her voice betraying her. Eberi was shocked that Chinelo did not believe her. With frustration, she responded, "I'm sure. I know what I saw, and I would never lie about something so serious." Chinelo's heart pounded in her chest. She had no more strength in her legs to stand. She sat down on the stairs. Eberi had always been trustworthy, but the image she painted of her innocent children being involved in something so inappropriate was too much to take in. For a moment, she just stood there staring at her sister, trying to make sense of it all. Chinelo thought to herself, Chijioke and Chinonso were only 9 years old. They are twins, they are curious. But could they really? No, it's not possible. Chinelo got up and walked upstairs, finding her children on the couch sitting together. As soon as the twins saw their mother, they jumped up and hugged her. For a moment, she almost forgot what her sister had told her about the twins. With a steady voice, she said, "We need to talk. Auntie Eberi told me something, and I need to know the truth." The twins looked up at her, their wide eyes full of innocence. "What did she say?" Chijioke asked, his voice small but curious. "She told me that something happened in Chinonso's room today when both of you were together," Chinelo responded. "She said you were naked." The room was silent for a long time. Then Chijioke shook his head and said, "No, Mommy, that's a lie. We didn't do anything." His sister agreed with him. "Auntie Eberi is lying," Chinonso said. The children spoke with conviction and certainty, and there was no guilt in their eyes. Chinelo was confused. She even threatened the children, trying to force them to tell the truth, but they were firm. "Mommy, we are telling the truth. Nothing happened. Auntie Eberi is lying." Chinelo stood there looking at her children. They seemed so confident in their innocence. But Eberi wasn't the kind of person to make up stories like this. She had no reason to lie. That night, Chinelo lay awake in bed, her mind racing. She hadn't told her husband yet. Whatever it was, Chinelo was determined to find out. As the days went by, Chinelo carried on as if nothing had happened. She thought Chinonso and Chijioke were always so close since birth. It wasn't unusual for them to be together at all times. She tried to push aside the unease that lingered in the back of her mind. A few weeks later, as Chinelo was cleaning Chijioke's room, her eyes wandered to his drawer. Something inside her pulled her toward it. She slowly opened the drawer and began organizing the clothes inside. She saw something very shocking. It was a pair of Chinonso's underwear folded neatly amongst Chijioke's shirts. His mother stared at it, her breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced. "How did Chinonso's underwear end up here?" she asked. She called out, "Chijioke!" so loudly that Chijioke ran to his room. "What's wrong?" he asked nervously. Chinelo held up the underwear, her hand trembling slightly. "Why is this here?" she demanded, her voice mixed with disbelief. Chijioke's eyes widened, more confusion washing over his face. "I don't know, Mom. I swear I don't know how that got there." "Do you expect me to believe that lie, Chijioke?" Chinelo said angrily, her voice trembling with anger and confusion. "I don't know," he cried, his voice cracking. "Maybe Ebere put it there by accident when she was folding our clothes." Chinelo's heart pounded in her chest as she studied her son's face, searching for any signs of deceit. His eyes were full of fear, his body trembling. Chinelo rushed back to her room and collapsed into her bed, looking at the ceiling. She just couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was looming over her family. When Obina returned from work, Chinelo told him everything about the underwear. Obina listened quietly, his brow furrowed. "That's ridiculous," he said, his anger flaring in his voice. "They're just children, Chinelo. You're overthinking this." Obina walked away from his wife. Chinelo was confused by her husband's response. A few days later, Chinelo decided to leave work early again. When she got home, the house was very silent. She dropped her bag on the chair and called out to Chinonso and Chijioke, but there was no response. Her heart raced, and she felt an eerie, unsettling quietness. She walked through the living room, her eyes moving everywhere to find her children, but they were nowhere. She went upstairs, walking quietly as her heart raced. She noticed that Chinonso's bedroom door was slightly open. Chinelo froze for a moment. Fear rushed through her body. She slowly pushed the door open. What she saw made her stomach turn. Chijioke and Chinonso, her beautiful, innocent children, were lying on the bed completely naked, their bodies intertwined in a way that sent a shockwave through Chinelo's entire being. For a second, she couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the image in front of her. The moment the children saw her, they jumped up, terrified. Their faces turned pale, eyes wide in panic. "What the hell are you doing?" Chinelo screamed. Tears filled Chinonso's eyes and Chijioke's lips shook. "We didn't do anything, Mommy," Chijioke pleaded, his voice shaking as he fumbled to cover himself. Chinelo's legs trembled as she stepped closer, her eyes locked on her children. "Don't lie to me. Tell me the truth." "Mommy," sobbed Chinonso, pulling her knees to her chest. "We didn't do anything bad." Chinelo's rage faltered. She looked at her babies, terrified and shaking. Chinelo couldn't take it anymore. She turned and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Later that evening, after the children were in bed, she finally told Obina. She didn't want to, but this was too serious to ignore. Obina listened with a deep frown on his face. He clenched his fists and paced the room. "I can't believe it," he muttered, shaking his head. "This needs to stop," he screamed. Chinelo started crying, not knowing what to do. Obina went to the children's rooms to confront them. The children kept saying they didn't do anything wrong. Obina was even more confused. He told them that it was not right for them to be naked, holding each other in bed. Chinelo couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was wrong. As she was standing there, a thought of putting a hidden camera without telling her husband came to her mind. She was determined to find out what was going on in her home and with her children. She installed the cameras to cover every corner of their home without telling anyone. She came back home one day, and as she headed upstairs, she could hear some sounds. She quietly made her way upstairs. As she climbed the last step on the stairs, the bedroom door creaked open slightly, and then she saw her husband stepping out of the room, his shirt half-buttoned. Obina froze as he saw Chinelo, his eyes wide with surprise. "Babe, what are you doing here?" His voice was unsteady. Chinelo looked at her husband's unkempt appearance. His trousers were wrinkled, and his belt was loosely hanging from the belly loops. She knew something was terribly wrong. She stepped forward, closer to him, unable to take her eyes away from his rumpled clothes. Obina shifted uncomfortably. I came home early too. I wanted to check on the kids, just to see if they were doing anything crazy," he said. Chinelo rushed into the children's room to check on them. Chinonso was reading on her bed, while Chijioke was in his room playing his game. The children looked strange and unreal. She knew they were pretending. Chinelo just could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. Obinna, suspecting that Chinelo wasn't buying his story, asked, "Is everything okay, babe?" Chinelo nodded. "Yes." Obinna held her hands and walked her away from the children's room. He tried to lighten her mood, talking about his day at work and offering to make dinner. But Chinelo was very silent. When everyone had gone to bed, Chinelo opened the camera app to view the camera footage. As she watched the events that unfolded that day, she was in shock, and her stomach sank as a chill ran down her spine. Chinelo couldn't breathe. Her entire body trembled, and tears started streaming down her face. She had seen enough. She had all the evidence she needed. Chinelo couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch in the living room, staring blankly at her phone. Her thoughts were trapped in an endless loop of anger, pain, and disbelief. When Ebere woke up the next morning, she came downstairs and saw her sister sitting on the couch. "Good morning, sister," but Chinelo ignored her. Ebere went over to make sure her sister was fine. "Are you all right, sister? Can you hear me?" Chinelo slowly turned to Ebere and yelled, "Don't touch me!" Obinna walked in just in time. "What's going on here?" he asked. Chinelo stood up, her fist clenched tightly. She moved closer to Obinna with unrestrained anger. "I will show you what's wrong." She grabbed her phone and opened the camera app for them to watch. The video showed Obinna, her husband, walking into Ebere's room. They both undressed and laid on the bed, their bodies intertwined. Then a different angle of another camera also caught the twins tiptoeing to Ebere's room door to peek through the crack and watch everything that unfolded in the room. They all watched the children's innocent faces staring at something they couldn't possibly understand. Chinonso and Chijioke, standing outside the door, watching what happened next, ripped through Chinelo's heart. Chinonso and Chijioke, unaware of the gravity of what they had seen, imitated the scene they had just witnessed. Each time there was no one, they would imitate the scene by taking off their clothes and lying down together in bed. Chinonso even mimicked the sound she had heard Ebere make. They immediately knew that the children were simply copying what they had seen their father and auntie do. When the video ended, Obinna and Ebere stood frozen with their mouths wide open. For a moment, no one spoke. Chinelo's hand twitched at her side, her fingers curling into a tight fist. Her heart pounded in her chest, her blood boiling with rage, betrayal, and disgust. With a sudden fierce movement, Chinelo stepped forward and slapped Ebere hard across the face. Ebere staggered back, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. "How could you?" Chinelo's voice trembled with fury, her eyes burning with tears. "I gave you everything. I pay you to take care of my children, a place to stay, and I feed you. And this is how you repay me? By sleeping with my husband? By betraying your own sister?" Ebere stood numb as tears streamed down her face. "Sister Chinelo, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she stammered. Obinna, who was shocked beyond words, immediately spoke up. "Calm down, Chinelo, please. It was a mistake. Let's not make this worse than it already is." "What could make it worse?" Chinelo screamed at him, her eyes narrowing with fury. "Obinna, you betrayed me with my own sister!" Without warning, Chinelo slapped him across the face harder than she had slapped Ebere. Obinna stumbled back, one hand holding his cheek, his face twisted, but he didn't say anything, as there was nothing he could say that would fix what he had done. Ebere sobbed, her voice shaky as she tried to step closer, kneeling before Chinelo. "Please, sister, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." But Chinelo's heart was hardened. There was no forgiveness left to give. "Pack your things and get out of my house," Chinelo said. Obinna stepped close to Ebere and tried to help her up, but Chinelo yelled at him, "Don't you dare touch her." Chinelo left them and walked upstairs. The commotion woke the twins up. Chijioke and Chinonso had been quiet and confused by the tension they heard, but didn't fully understand what was going on. Chinelo looked at them, her heart aching for the innocence they had lost. "I need to talk to you about what happened," she said to them. The children looked at her, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear. What you saw happen between Daddy and Auntie Iberi was wrong. I want you to know that you should never ever copy that again. Mommy, are we in trouble? They asked. No, you are not in trouble. But don't lie down without clothes again with your brother, okay? The children listened to her and agreed not to do that again. Chinelo began the process of divorce. There was no going back from this. The marriage had been destroyed beyond repair. Iberi called numerous times to apologize, but Chinelo refused to allow her back into her life. Iberi called their mother to intervene, but Chinelo informed their mother that she had forgiven Iberi and Obina, but she would never allow people that destroyed her life to come back into her life. Chinelo's focus now was on her children and her business. Who do you blame more for this chaos in Chinelo's life? Is it Iberi, her sister, or Obina, her husband? Leave your thoughts in the comments section. If this story made you angry the way it did to me, hit the like button. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe.